Thank you very much for coming today. Great to see people logging on as we speak. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the First Nations peoples as the traditional custodians of country throughout New South Wales and recognise their continuing connections to lands, waters and communities. Create New South Wales pays respects to elders past and present and to all First Nations peoples, and recognises the continuation of diverse spiritual, educational and cultural practices. My name is David Everest. I'm Manager of Arts and Development at Create New South Wales. I'm a cis male in my 50s with medium length grey hair and a blue shirt and a dark jumper. I'm hosting today, but we also have staff from Create New South Wales, Kartika, who will be talking about the criteria for project funding, Katrina, who will talk about the multi-year funding, and we also have Nick here, who is working behind the scenes, making sure all the technology works. We also have a special guest, Fiona Murphy. Fiona is a successful recipient of Create funding, and we'll talk a little bit about the experience of applying for funding and some tips and hints. Look, feel free to put questions in the chat at any time, but we'll also, leave time at the end for any questions that you have if you want to ask us, or again by putting them in the chat. But yeah, if anything's not clear at any time, please just jump into the chat and we can clarify it there. We do want these sessions to be a bit of a conversation. It's pretty hard in a webinar format with lots of people, but feel free to jump in at any time that you feel you'd like to. So this is about the Arts and Cultural Funding Program, and the program has been reformed, and this is based on the to align with the new New South Wales Government's Creative Communities policy. And the policy was developed in response to issues raised by the sector during a consultation period last year. And a couple of key things that came out of this was to prioritise First Nations culture, to simplify the grant application and reporting process, to provide a more equitable and fairer funding model, to increase funding security for the sector for long-term investment options, and to improve business models to sustain arts and culture. So it's been an exciting time for us, and we've made quite a lot of changes, and we'd really like to hear, as you delve into it, if we've achieved some of these things or not. But we hope we have. So the new funding program has some new categories that we'll go through and explain today. For project funding, we have Creative Nations funding, which is designed specifically for First Nations artists and organisations. We have Next Steps, which is for professional development and really is a focus on professional development for artists. Kind of replaces the small project quick response funding that we used to have. Then we've got Creative Steps, which is really about development presentation of new work, and a new funding opportunity called Cultural Access, which is really focusing on priority area individuals and groups and projects. And we'll talk about this a bit more because this has a specific focus on disability. There's also regional arts touring and 4-year multi-year funding and 2-year multi-year funding, which Katrina will talk about more later. So part of the policy was to develop these and to really focus on these key priority areas. And the key priority areas are First Nations stories and communities, Western Sydney and regional New South Wales, the next generation of creatives and audiences, broad and inclusive communities and content, and accessibility and equity. And to dig down into this a little bit more, in terms of our project funding in the ACFP priority areas, we specifically talk about First Nations, as I've said, but also culturally and linguistically diverse areas, the LGBTQIA+, and people with disability and or who are deaf. We're also looking at target populations of young people under the age of 25 and as we said, Western Sydney and regional New South Wales. The key difference about this with the new program is that these are directly now assessed as part of the criteria. So rather than just being priorities that came at the end process of the funding process, these are now key parts of the criteria, and with cultural access, it's a key criteria. So I'll just go through them quite quickly because all the information for the different funding programs are actually on the website now. So you can see them in more detail, their actual guidelines. But there's the Creative Nations project funding, which is for individuals and organisations who identify as First Nations. And there are small projects up to 40,000 and larger projects up to 100,000. All these funding opportunities are going to open on the 23rd of October and close on the 2nd of December. And these will be for projects obviously starting next year. The next one is the professional development or next steps. And this is for really focusing on professional development. So this is not about projects. This is really about artists or your skills development and those sorts of development opportunities. For example, for conferences, for residencies, for those sorts of real skills development opportunities that come up. And it can be up to $10,000. So it can be even for significant opportunity that happens overseas or interstate. So the big change is we don't have the quick response grants. So you're going to have to be more organised if you have these opportunities because there's only going to be 2 funding rounds each year for this. But it's more money. So you can really plan something significant for your career. Creative Steps is the new work projects. So again, this is just for individuals and it's for artists to really develop a project that is, exciting and significant for them. You can partner with an organisation as part of it. And in fact, it's encouraged, but you're in control of it. So it's your project and you can partner with an organisation to do it, but the funding goes to you and you can you lead the project. So this again can be up to 40,000 or 100,000, obviously, for large projects. The next one is, the one that particularly want to focus on cultural access, because this is for individuals and organisations to develop projects, but it's the individuals and organisations who are led by or support the priority area groups. So this is really to focus on the priority areas and make sure that there's real opportunities for these priority areas and groups and target audiences to really develop new work and some great projects. So please have a look at this one. Look at the guidelines on the website for more details. And, of course, with all of this, if you have any questions about this today or in the future, please contact us and we can provide you with more information about it. There's also regional arts touring, which one round is closed already, but this next round opens next year, which again is just a great opportunity if you've already got a show or got a exhibition or something that can potentially tour into regional New South Wales. And I'm going to hand over to Kartika to just talk a little bit about the new assessment criteria, because we've changed this quite a lot, hopefully to make things a lot more simpler and accessible.
Thanks, David. So I'm just going to go through the project funding assessment criteria. So the first criteria is the idea. So this is a 30% weighting, and this section should outline a vision for your project that clearly summarizes the ideas, aims, and purpose. So the question here is, what do you want to do? And you might want to consider some of these questions. What is the idea for this project? What do you want to achieve? What is interesting about it? And what will you communicate to other artists, communities, and or audiences? The next criteria is diversity and participation. This has a weighting of 20%. And this is where you will demonstrate how your project is relevant to or will benefit you. The question here is, why do you want to do it? And some questions you might want to consider is, who is the project relevant to? Who will it benefit? For example, artists, communities, and or audiences. How does the project reflect the diversity of people in New South Wales? And what are the results you want to see at the completion of your project? The third criteria is experience. So this has a 20% weighting. And this is where you can outline the artistic experience of those involved in the project. The question here is, who is involved and why are they the right people for this activity? So you might want to consider the following. So what do the individuals or organisations bring to this project? What skills and expertise do the artists, arts and cultural workers or organisations involved have that will ensure your project is a success? And lastly, how will those involved help build sustainable careers and professional skills for artists, arts and cultural workers and communities? The next criteria is connection to country, and this has a weighting of 10%. However, it's, to note, this is not required for Next Steps project funding, and I can go into that in detail later. So this section, connection to country, request details of the location or locations for the proposed project. So the question here is, how does the location provide access to the intended audience or benefit the regional New South Wales communities involved? The question here is, how does the location provide access to the intended audience or benefit regional New South Wales communities involved? So you might want to consider these questions. Where will the project activities take place? Why are these the most appropriate places for the project? How will the project create meaningful connection with artists, communities and/or audiences? And who is your audience? The last criteria is sustainability, and this has a 20% weighting. So this is a section that requires you to provide a budget to support your project. The question here is, how will the funding be spent? So you might want to consider the following, how your budget reflects efficient use of funds to achieve the project's goals. What other sources of funding are there for your project as well? And in terms of the next steps, the waiting for the assessment, it's, as I mentioned, it's slightly different as it doesn't include connection to country. So for next steps, the idea has a weighting of 40%, the diversity and participation is 30%, and then experience is 20%, and then lastly, sustainability is 10%. So pass it on to you, David. Next slide, please.
I would just mention on that, sorry, we'll just go back to the last slide because I think we should just mention the support material. We now do not ask for letters of support. From consultation, we found that took a lot of time from people and was quite a process that actually, from our point of view, wasn't even that valuable. So all that we're requiring now is if you're actually partnering with somebody or doing a collaboration, we just need a letter of basically a letter of invitation or a letter of collaboration to identify that partnership. We don't need letters of support. But obviously we still ask for samples of work, which is, of course, really important that the assessors, the art form boards that assess all these applications can see your work and samples of your work. But yeah, hopefully the whole process has been quite simplified. But to the next slide. I'd now like to introduce our guest artist, Fiona Murphy, who's been a successful recipient in the old funding round. So some of these guidelines will be a bit new to her too. But Fiona is an award-winning writer and editor based in the Blue Mountains, is a founder of Accessible Communications Collective, which is making the internet more accessible, and her writing about accessibility in the arts has appeared in The Guardian, the ABC, the Saturday paper, Griffith Review, The Big Issue, and in 2021, her memoir about deafness, The Shape of Sound, was released in Australia, New Zealand, UK, and North America. So it's great that we've got you here, Fiona, and if you can just share your experience a little bit about the whole process and some hints and tips, that would be great. Thanks.
Absolutely, and I've got a few tips on the next slide, if you could go to that one. I think a lot of people looking at funding have perhaps thought about it as being a lot of admin work, and it certainly is. So to hear the simplification of this process, I can't tell you how exciting it is. It's truly, truly exciting because it's it does take a lot of planning, time and commitment to securing funding, and it is quite an emotional process as well. I've definitely have put in so many applications. So just putting that into context, that I feel very, very fortunate that to be awarded funding last round, because have thrown many darts at the board and not all of them have landed at all. So these tips and hints that I put together does acknowledge that, particularly in the disability space, we are having to contend with a lot of barriers as well, and really thinking about applying through that lens. So when I'm thinking about any funding round, I often think 12 months in advance, because whilst the round is opening up at the end of October, if I wouldn't really put together an application a week out, because I know how much time and effort it takes. So hopefully this year aligns with your capacity and energy, that you can pop an application in, because it sounds really exciting, the opportunities, but recognizing that these opportunities happen in a cycle as well. So it's absolutely okay to plan several months in advance to give yourself the time to pull the project together. And often when I am planning an application, I really do consider the why question, why the project is important and timely. And for the application that I was successful in, it was taking quite a big punt in changing the art form and mode that I was working in. So I was quite successful in non-fiction, but I was funded in fiction writing. And I made that a real focus of the application, not just in the project itself, but explaining why it was so important for me in my career, and to take the next step, how it would help me to gain the skills. And that helped inform the writing of the application as well, because then I was able to justify why I needed time to research, get mentoring, have residencies, how the funding would be utilised on a week-to-week basis, in terms of having the opportunity to read short stories, to listen to podcasts, to watch videos, to build up my skills. And that was all cascading because I had the why was so clear. It helped me answer all the questions from my own career, but then the project itself, why should it exist in the world? And the project is very much, I noticed a gap in that there aren't a lot of short stories about deafness written by deaf or hard of hearing people, and that's something I'm incredibly passionate about as well. So having the why there for me personally, but also the project, was saved a lot of heartache and confusion once I started writing the project. That feeds into what do you need to enable the project to succeed, and I really mapped that out. What skills did I need to acquire to do it? So it's absolutely fine if you're not the absolute best in what you're trying to do. They're funding an idea, they're funding a process. What time was realistic, what resources, and importantly, access as well. And that time component was really important, that this project was going to run over 12 months. It was going to have to fit around my energy and deaf fatigue to be realistic. The next part are a few tips and tricks that I've developed over the many applications that I've submitted in the past. I always collate my ideas in a Word document, because that gives me the most flexibility to change things around, to do dot points, to be quite messy, because as soon as I go into the portal, it feels quite clunky doing it like that. It's always reminding you of the word count or the character limit at the bottom, which can get quite distracting. And often the applications appear over many pages on a website. So I tend to open the application and pull all the questions across into a Word document, and then I'm just working slowly in the Word document. What I also do as part of the writing process is to talk to friends and colleagues about the project, because if I can't explain it to someone else in a conversation, chances are I'm not going to have the words to explain it in the Word document. And I'm always aiming for plain English because I'm aware that there's usually a lot of applications. So I want to distill the idea into something that's plain and accessible for the grant reader who has probably read 40 other applications before they get to mine. I also like to create headings, and those headings might not go into the final application, but they allow me to actually track to make sure I've got the information presented in a logical sequence. And I also introduce myself. You can't assume that the judges will know who you are, particularly if there's a lot of art forms vying for the same funding. Whilst you might be quite successful and well known in your sector of the industry, such as dance or performance, they might not be aware of you if it's a literary judge. So don't be afraid to actually introduce who you are and what you've done as well. And that kind of creates a nice framing, because even though you will put your CV in there, it adds more of a personal touch and explains why you need this funding at this point in your career. So it all kind of marries up together. And then if you do have time to ask a friend or colleague to read it, that can be helpful. Or it can be confusing if that friend or colleague has never applied for funding before. So do be picky about who you choose, because they might just give you positive feedback and say, oh my goodness, this is fantastic. Of course you're going to get it. And that might not be helpful to construct the application. So you might pick someone who's a peer in the work that you do as well, who might say, actually, you forgot to mention that you won this award and you've done this, and maybe you could tweak it and move it around like this. So that can be useful, but definitely consider who you're seeking the feedback from, because it is quite difficult to give feedback. And editing, I always, if I've not submitted the night before and done it all in a rush, I try and let that Word document sit for at least a week before I pop it up into the portal, because it's incredible what a set of fresh eyes and a new perspective can do for realizing, like, oh, maybe I need to explain access a little bit more, or maybe I need to justify why I need to fly to Hawaii for this project. So it just gives you a little bit of time to see it with a fresh perspective. And my last tip is definitely don't leave it to the last 30 minutes to upload. Inevitably, your computer will crash and everything will freeze. Give yourself at least a day in advance to submit, so you don't have to navigate any tech issues. And best of luck as well, because it's a wonderful thing you're doing, putting yourself out there.
Fantastic. Such good advice. Just before we get on to the next bit, yeah, look, I think it's really important to identify that it is it is a really difficult thing to do, and it's an emotional thing to do, because you're putting your ideas out there, and you know, with all art, that can be quite a you know, vulnerable position. So yeah, I think your advice is really good, and I always think, yeah, of getting some trusted friends to read it, or, you know, colleagues, or, you know, someone who, yeah, will just not be totally positive, but also not be totally negative, because yeah, it is such a hard process. The other thing I just wanted to say, with the Word document, we now have a facility where we can create a Word document of the Smarty Grants form for you. We haven't actually put it on the website. You do have to email us or call us for us to send it to you. But yeah, it's the new technology, and particularly if you've got new Microsoft, that means that you can actually, you know, dictate into the document and screen read it much more easily, because we know that Smarty Grants portal that we have to use because it's a government thing is not very screen readable and not very intuitive. And as you say, it has lots of pages open, and yeah, we've still got quite a bit of work to do with Smarty Grants to get it more accessible. But Fiona, just also, what are you up to now? What are you doing?
I'm pulling together, so I'm in the final part of the short story manuscript and pulling it together. So it's been a really incredible 12 months to be able to explore a completely new side of writing and to feel like it's been a supported learning curve, and I've certainly have had the opportunity to make horrendous mistakes and write terrible short stories, but then edit them and improve them. So that's where my focus is at the moment. Polishing.
Fantastic. Well, we look forward to seeing it out there. And just on that, if you are successful in getting a project funded, we do realise that things never quite work out the way that you plan them. And that's just the reality too. So we do have a process. If things change significantly, you can ask for a variation and just let us know what's happened. You know, if a major player has pulled out and someone else has come in, or the timelines change, things like that, that's fine. We get it. You know, we understand that that's what happens. And unless things have gone really, really, you know, bad, it's usually fine, and we just give you a variation. Thanks, Fiona, that's great. And maybe if anyone else has got some questions, but awesome advice. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the Creative Internship Program, which we also have on offer at Create New South Wales. And this is an internship program that we've developed in partnership with Screen New South Wales, actually Sound New South Wales now, to an Accessible Arts. And it's to provide paid internships with New South Wales organisations for participants with a disability or who are deaf. And it's been a great program. We've done it for a couple of years now, and we've had some fantastic outcomes. And it's a great opportunity for people with disability or who are deaf to get just a bit of work experience. It's not a long time. It's only a month, but it's a real opportunity for people to work in some great organisations. And it's actually been great for those organisations as well, because they've had to adapt and learn themselves, and it's been a great kind of process. The next slide. Thanks, Katrina. So yeah, there's some of the examples. People have worked at the ABC, had some great internships this year at Earth Physical Theatre, making amazing puppets and scene stuff. At the Sydney Theatre Company, Out Loud Youth Theatre, Tantrum Youth Arts, SBS. So they're just some of the examples. So at the moment, we've got host organisations can apply to be a host organisation. That's happening at the moment. And then in November, opening on November the 4th, will be the opportunity for the interns to apply for the program. We'll know then what the host organisations are. So you can apply to work with a host organisation or intern with a host organisation as part of this program. And so keep an eye out for that. That will open on the 4th of November. And yeah, it's a great program. If you're kind of looking to more, it's more of a, if you're looking to into the admin or into the kind of behind the scenes opportunities within some of these organisations. Okay, next slide. I'm going to hand over to Katrina to talk about the multi-year funding. So this is for organisation organisation support.
Hi everyone, my name is Katrina and I work in the Key Arts Organisations team at Create. I'm going to just briefly run you through the 2-year multi-year funding program and the 4-year multi-year funding program, which are rolling out very soon. So to begin with, our 2-year multi-year funding, it's really aiming to support both new and established arts and cultural organisations. And we want to support them to develop ways to strengthen and grow the New South Wales arts and culture ecology, create innovative artistic content and products, and drive positive social outcomes for us all. So the focus is really on, allowing everyone the opportunity to contribute and experience arts and culture in the state. So the 2-year program, the applications are opening in March. They're opening in March because our 4-year program opens first. And this is for activity between the 1st of January 26 to the end of 27 inclusive. In terms of the grant value, you can apply for between $60,000 and up to $100,000 per year for new organisations that haven't previously received funding from Create New South Wales, or more established orgs that may have received funding in the past can apply to up to $200,000. So we're opening in March 25, closing at the end of April. And because we are operating under our new and improved model, simpler, fairer and faster, we're going to try and get all of those notifications out within approximately 8 weeks. So hoping to get notifications out in June. And just a quick eligibility summary. So organisations do need to be not-for-profit. The primary purpose of them needs to be that they deliver arts and cultural activities. Service organisations can also apply, or local government LGAs located in the state. The orgs also need to have an ABN, and in terms of LGAs, the galleries or theatres that belong to the local government, they can apply separately if they have their own ABN, or they apply under the local government area if it's a shared ABN. Organisations also have to have operated legally for a minimum of 1 year, and you can't ask for the 100% of the funds to come from Create. At least 20% needs to be coming from a diversified funding source, including in-kind support. Annual turnover needs to be greater than $30,000 for the last financial year. And we also, because we're really trying to encourage collaboration across the sector, we need to see that 10% per annum is allocated to support that collaboration. Now moving on to the 4-year funding program, that one's opening a bit sooner. In a few days, it opens the same time as the project funding on the 23rd of October and closing on the 2nd of December. The 4-year program has a slightly different focus, but it's aiming to support sustainable arts and cultural organisations. We're trying to make sure that organisations are able to plan a little bit longer term and really focus on developing and delivering diverse arts and cultural activities for New South Wales. We're trying to strengthen the creative ecosystem and support partnerships and collaborations, not just across arts organisations, but also, with organisations outside of the arts as well. So what can you apply for under 4-year? The funds can contribute towards the cost of delivering quite a wide range of arts and cultural activity, including but not limited to creation of new work, production, presentation or publication, development of audiences, partnerships, sustainability and capacity building initiatives, the purchase of equipment if it's integral to the arts and cultural activity, and devolved funding programs for service organisations. The cap on the ask is a little bit higher, so you can apply for up to $600,000 a year, but that request should really be commensurate with, the activities that you're planning to deliver. And again, with the notification, we're hoping that our organisations will be receiving their happy news, hopefully, in March 2025. In regards to eligibility, it's quite similar to the 2-year, although they need to have been operating legally for a minimum of 2 years, and the independent financial contribution also needs to be made. You cannot ask for more than 80% of funding directly from Create. And finally, the annual turnover from the last financial year needs to be greater than $100,000. But if you're from an arts organisation and you have any questions, we're doing one-on-one sessions, so reach out and we can absolutely organise to have a chat. Thank you, David.
Awesome, thank you. So look, I'm just going to outline just some of the accessibility opportunities with the application process. The key thing is that now the guidelines on our website are screen readable and translatable, and hopefully a lot more accessible than the old guidelines, which used to be in PDFs, etc. In terms of support, as Katrina said, please call us, email us, or you can set one-on-one meetings through our Microsoft Teams meetings portal. You can set a meeting that way. We also use the National Relay Service, and we can organise sessions that can suit you. The next slide, I think, covers the as I mentioned before, we also now have the opportunity that you can request the Smarty Grants form to be put into a Word format that you can use. So as Fiona said, it's a lot easier working out of a Word format than straight into Smarty Grants. So yeah, definitely recommend either doing it yourself or requesting it from us. And hopefully you'll find even the Smarty Grants forms a little bit more simpler to use now. And, the criteria that we're asking, the questions that we're asking are hopefully a lot more straightforward. You can also do a video or audio application for 2 of the questions in the Smarty Grants form, so the why and the what. You can speak to a video or to an audio file and download that file instead of having to write it. And, for some people, this is a great option, and it doesn't have to be, super edited or anything like that. You can just do it straight using your phone or your computer. We also can do dictated responses. Again, please contact us at least a week before the closing date to do that, because it takes a bit of setting up to do. But we also offer that opportunity now too. So look, we're not. There's still a long way for us to go, but we're working on it and love to get your feedback about any of these opportunities too. So we've sort of gone through the key dates. The ones project funding and multi-year funding opens on the 23rd of October. The creatability internships open on the 4th of November, close the 2nd of December. They close on the 2nd of December. And creatability closes on the 16th of December. And then there's regional arts touring, and then the notification of round 1 project funding and the multi-year multi-year, and then the 2-year opens. Anyway, all that information is on our website. So yeah, we're here to help, and we really do encourage you to contact us if you have any requirements or any questions, and we're really try and help as much as we can. You know, we really, all of the people who work at Create New South Wales have been artists, and we understand, you know, the process and how hard it is, and you know, we really are here to help. And, you know, we also recognise that it is a really competitive process, and, you know, our success rates are not high, and we know that, to be honest. But we also encourage people as much as possible to have a go, and hopefully now with the new processes and new reform, it will be easier for people, and it won't be about, it will be more about the ideas and why and what you want to do, rather than, you know, complicated language or anything like that. As Fiona said, plain English is really the key. And yeah, we really encourage you to apply if you're interested. So thank you, and really happy to answer any questions. If you'd like to either put your hand up and ask it, or put any questions in the chat, yeah, very happy to answer them now. Or obviously later you can email us or set up a meeting with us. Any questions? Oh, excellent. We've obviously provided all the information that no, I know it's also not necessarily easy to ask a question now, so feel free to ask it later.
I have a question. I don't know if you can hear me because I haven't used this interface before.
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, great. So I'm trying to work out how to decide whether to apply for the cultural access, or what's the other one called? The New Steps project, whatever you call it. It seems to me with cultural access that you are required to demonstrate how your project would benefit artists or audiences from priority areas. Is that right?
Yeah.
So if you are an artist from a priority area and your work is not geared to any specific audience, does that mean that you should apply in the creative steps stream rather than the cultural access stream?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think if you're obviously leading the project,
Yes.
and in that way, just by the fact that if you are from a priority area, you are, you know, you are part of a community, and that the work that you're doing is, even though like not directly, not a direct relation to that project, it will still be a kind of I guess it will potentially be leading, and will kind of support you as an artist, as a member of that community. So you could apply to both, and I guess it's a kind of almost a chicken and the egg kind of scenario. But yeah, I think in a way, depending on, I guess, the content of what the project is about, if it was kind of with a bit of a focus on the community that you represent, then I would go for cultural access. But it's a bit of a, it's a really good question. It's a bit of a 50-50 in a way.
Okay.
Depends a little bit on the emphasis. You might want to talk to us more about it.
Okay, so book a one-on-one meeting and speak to someone specifically.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Now we've got some questions in the chat. Are the requirements for all individual funding now that they are no support letters at all needed? Yes. So for project funding, you don't need any support letters. Only if you're doing a collaboration or a partnership, we just need a letter that verifies the collaboration and the partnership, but no letters of support. Could you please remind us of the phone number to make contact? Yes. Where do we have that? Oh, you put it in. Kartika's already put it in. Thank you, Kartika. So the phone is 02 9228 4578, and the email is arts.funding@create.nsw.gov.au. And Katrina has also put in the link, to contacting the key orgs. So there's a question: what is included in annual turnover income? I think this might be a question for you, Katrina.
Hi, from local government budgets. Okay, so we'd be looking at the annual turnover for the business unit that's applying. So if that's an art gallery or a theatre, it could be, anything, ticket sales, merch, admissions. It could be other grant funding, philanthropy, sponsorship, membership income, really anything that contributes to the annual budget. It can also include in-kind support. So you will hear in-kind thrown around a little bit in grant speak. So if you're not sure what that refers to, it's basically something that still has a monetary worth, but no money is actually exchanged. So an example might be that, an artist is working with a local council, and that council has allocated some free rehearsal time. There's still a monetary value to that rehearsal time in a venue, but no money actually exchanged hands. The benefit is, the sponsorship and the relationship. So we will often ask for the in-kind value to be put into the budget, if that makes sense. But if you are unsure of any of these definitions, we have an amazing glossary on the website, and I can post a link in the chat. I hope that answered your question.
Thanks, Katrina. And yeah, Katika's also put in the grant inquiries booking appointment link to speak to someone from the arts funding team, particularly in relation to those questions as well.
Sorry, David, I just wanted to add that you can find all these links at the support and contact section at the bottom of the guidelines. So once they've been released, then you can access those links there.
Yeah, and the glossary is really useful too in terms of defining some of the terms that are in the guidelines. That's also in the links. Also with project funding, we have simplified the budget process, and I'm not sure that we've completely nailed that either, but please, love to hear your feedback on it. But we don't require you to do an Excel spreadsheet for the budget anymore. We just ask you to put the figures straight into the Smarty Grants form. But at the same time, there is a place for notes, so it is really important to put some notes in there to explain things if there's anything complicated. But we also encourage people, and we have a budget line for accessibility, so to support the project to be accessible, or to support you as an artist to engage with the project and support your accessibility. So that's a budget line that we also encourage people to use now. Awesome. We're nearly out of time, so I think unless there are any last minute questions, we can wrap it up there. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your questions, and thank you, Tiana and Erin. And yeah, as I said, please get on the website and contact us, book an appointment to discuss further, particularly when the application forms come up. We're really happy to discuss them. And thank you, Fiona. Thank you, Fiona, for being our guest and jumping in and providing those tips and hints that were really, really useful. This, as I said, this has been recorded, so will take a few days for us just to set it up and get it on the website, but it will be on the website also if you want to refer back to anything. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, and best of luck with it, and go make some great art. Okay. See ya.